All right, so thanks to everyone for being on today. My name is Amanda Leach. I'm the Assistant Director for Career and Networking Programs here in the JMU Office of Alumni Relations. I'm a proud 2009 graduate of JMU, and I also just recently received my master's here as well. Today's webinar is brought to you by the JMU Alumni Association. One of the great things about these webinars is that they attract alumni from every industry: higher education, technology, business, the arts. I want to say thank you to everyone for participating. Your feedback means a lot to us, especially with this relatively new program. You will receive a follow-up survey after the webinar. Please take time to give us feedback so we can continue to improve upon what we're already doing. Before I introduce today's speaker, some brief housekeeping notes. If you are participating live, know that your microphones are muted. There are two chat options, a Q&A and a chat. If you'd like to ask a question of the presenter, please choose the Q&A feature and be sure to include the host and presenter. If you have issues with the technology, please choose the chat feature and send that to me, the host. Please feel free to tweet live during the webinar. The hashtag that we're using is hashtag JMUAAwebinar. I'll be sure to send that out in the chat. And this webinar will be recorded and can be accessed later on our website. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Zach Detweiler, a 2008 grad from the WRTC program. He is currently the Enterprise Relationship Manager at LinkedIn. Before joining LinkedIn about 3 years ago, Zach worked for a leading global recruitment firm where he worked on recruitment, augmentation, and outsourcing solutions for regional and national companies. At LinkedIn, Zach works consulting and advising major national and international companies on talent acquisition and employer branding. Ultimately, he helps transform talent brands and modernize a company's ability to hire the best and brightest talent. Zach, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Amanda, for the introduction. I'm excited to be here and be interacting with some JMU people. It's been a while since I've been back. It's funny that Amanda mentioned Trop House. I love Trop House, and I guess that's going with crawling all over the school now. Anyway, as Amanda said, we'll jump into things. I have a background in talent acquisition. So first, to get started, I want to help you guys understand who I am and really why you should take any stock in what I have to say. So I graduated in 2008, as Amanda said. I've had about 6 years total in talent acquisition. My first few years were spent as a recruiter, and then I eventually sold and managed, again, outsourcing services for recruiting. I've been with LinkedIn, it's my 4th year, and I've actually had kind of 2 distinct jobs at LinkedIn. My first was dealing with recruiting and agency clients. So most recruiting organizations, right, and especially recruiting firms, are crazy about LinkedIn. And what I did for a number of years was kind of advise those recruiters on how to, best leverage LinkedIn to do their jobs. The role I'm in currently now is Enterprise Relationship Management, and what that is I basically work with companies to, formulate their story of why a candidate should want to work with them. And all this kind of my path, inside LinkedIn and the recruiting industry in general, it's just giving me a really interesting insider's perspective on, both how recruiters think about their daily jobs, but also at a higher level, how, big organizations are thinking about talent and what they're doing. And really my aim here is to kind of open that door to you a little bit, and hopefully going through some of this, you will all be more successful in every endeavor you have, especially as it pertains to, your next career move. So it's a little bit about me. Let's talk today about what we're going to go over in today's session. So we're going to, and for those on the call about a month ago, we're going to kind of repeat a quick section about what LinkedIn is. I think it's important just to kind of reset that table and help people understand, our overarching goal and mission. But then we're going to look at maximizing your success before you apply. What we talked about in the previous webinar was really about how to, brand yourself, how to grow your network, a lot of that foundational things. Now we're going to talk about, hey, maybe you found a job, right, that you're looking to apply for. What can you do before you pull that trigger, right, to put in your application? What can you do to kind of maximize your success? And then hopefully, if that goes well and you get, an interview offer, what can you do, specifically with LinkedIn to help you, be set up to maximize that opportunity. So right now we're going to focus on what is LinkedIn. What is LinkedIn? The common, it's a social network, everybody knows this. A lot of, less educated people think, hey, it's just this big network and it's all about just people finding jobs all the time. And the thing that's really special about LinkedIn is it is obviously a career resource, and it's obviously, has professional aim to it, but really it's a place that, what makes it so incredible from a candidate perspective is that it really is all about networking, right? People are coming to LinkedIn to consume information, to see how other people are doing their job, and ultimately, LinkedIn's aim is just to connect professionals and make them more productive. That is our mission, right? If we think about, 10, 15 years ago, before LinkedIn was in existence, if we think about the global economy or even, a national or local economy, you always have, a supply of talent, and you have demand for that talent. But what's been difficult in years past before LinkedIn was it's really hard to connect those two. There's a lot of friction, right? There's companies that might need a ton of people to work for them, and there's a ton of skilled workers that really might have those skills. But how do they find each other? It's really difficult. We're now in the information age where that friction is taken out of the picture. And, LinkedIn's kind of global mission is basically we figure if we can remove that friction and connect those two groups faster, we're going to advance the global economy. And we've seen it happen. So LinkedIn is made up of a few things, right? We have over 400 million members now globally. So that's kind of the basics. That's you. Everybody that's on the phone, hopefully, has a LinkedIn profile. On that, we have over 3.5 million company profiles. From there, we have 2 million jobs that those companies have. And then we actually have 24,000 schools now listed on there. LinkedIn's even getting to a stage where we're going to start really focusing on students and helping them help them not just in their career, but even, hey, what do you want to do and what's the right school or program to get you there? On top of all those layers, we have billions of network updates, connection requests, status updates, people putting out articles, right? And what LinkedIn, the aim of this is basically connect and map this all out. Again, when we look at, from a data perspective, if we map this all out, there's a lot of interesting things we can do in terms of, hey, predicting, what's going to be the next big thing in terms of what skills you need to have, what companies are growing. Mapping it out makes it really easy to kind of, adjust our course as we need to. So we call that the economic graph, and we'll talk about this today, right? So these are all layers of people and companies and jobs. How do you sort through that and leverage that to advance your own career is really what we're going to talk about today. So that's LinkedIn. So we're going to focus now on really the pre-apply approach that we can take with LinkedIn. So right now, maximizing success, before you apply. So we're going to look at kind of three distinct, or chop this into a few pieces, right? So before you apply, we're going to look at how your network plays into this, and we're just really going to focus on what is your network. A lot of times people think, hey, my first year connections, those I'm connected with, that's my network. It's a little bit more, right? We're going to look at, hey, once you understand who your network really is, how do you find the path through that network, to that company that you're trying to get in the door to. And then the last thing we'll talk about is the artful ask, and this is really, hey, if you're able to network well, how do you ask somebody to help you in a way that's going to come across as grateful and complimentary and make sure that this person, basically has some motivation to help. So that's what we'll look at, and we're going to focus right now on the network piece. So real quick, this was from last session too. Hey, how many jobs are found by just applying straight to job ads? Hey, 90%, 70%. It's 30%, right? It's not a lot. So, how are these other jobs found? Like, how do people get in the door? It is networking, right? We see it, especially with LinkedIn coming into play. Relationships are becoming more important because organizations realize, wow, they've seen a trend that the people that they have referred to them and the people that they get through a relationship path usually end up being higher quality candidates and better workers. So from a talent acquisition industry point of view, the networking piece is actually a positive. It's a positive thing when a candidate finds somebody that way or finds an opportunity that way rather than just blindly applying. So your network, right? One thing I want to help everybody realize is it's not just your LinkedIn connections, right? Hey, I've got some connections, that's great. Is this all I have to work with? Your network is truly anybody that is willing to help, right? And we'll talk a little bit more later about, how you can get people to be more willing, right? But let's talk about, the network, right? So there's some, in terms of who's going to be willing to help you, well, the important question to ask there is, can you relate to that person, right? It's funny that they say, hey, it's all business or just straight business. Business is actually personal. It's extremely personal. Because we're human beings, we have relationships, and especially from the networking point of view, we want to figure out how can I relate and have some common ground to build a relationship off of. That is how you can really take this approach and to make it effective for you. So, hey, how can you relate? What's out there in the world? Like, what are some connection points to people, right? So there's obviously the alumni network. Everybody on this phone, hopefully, is more than willing to help out their fellow alumni. James Madison is I think, renowned for, a school people really love. We have a really strong culture, and we love our alumni, and, that's why I'm on the phone today. Amanda reached out to me and said, hey, Zach, I see you working on LinkedIn, and, hey, we're doing this, kind of alumni association thing. I love JMU. I knew Amanda, and I'm more than happy to do it because we have that commonality, right? If she was from somewhere, with no sort of commonality there, I might not be on the phone today. Obviously, for me, right, I work at LinkedIn. You have your current colleagues, and your most, hey, I work at LinkedIn. There might be some other people that have left the organization. I automatically know, hey, wow, if somebody, is at a company and I used to work with them, that's an easy way in, right? Here's some basic things. The other, a few things I'm going to bring to the table here that maybe are outside of, some people's thinking is nonprofits, other associations. This could be sports. This could be charity. I was involved in Big Brothers, Big Sisters in Harrisonburg, and that's something that, right, if I, say I'm trying to find a job at Google, right, if I found somebody at Google, right, either they could be a hiring manager or recruiter, they could just be somebody that I think might be able to give me insight into the organization. If I had no other commonality, but I saw, hey, we were both part of that, that is an amazing thing to relate to. We have a shared experience that we can talk about there, and that's how you build a relationship. Another thing to talk about is Adecco. That's the recruiter firm I used to work for, and that's, hey, that is far in my, rearview mirror now, but don't forget about, jobs, even if they're a few removed. Again, when you start a conversation with somebody that might be a stranger, you have these commonalities, even if you didn't really have a relationship with them, you can still talk, hey, this was the great thing about Adecco, that was the bad thing, whatever. And then the other thing we're going to talk about is we'll move on to the next slide here. This will illustrate it hopefully well for you. So if we think about connections, right, this might be you. Hey, this is me, and here's kind of my circle of connections. So if we think about first-year connections on LinkedIn, those that are your actual connections, you send them an invite, they connected to you, yay, yeah, that's networking, right? So that's fine, right, and that's the kind of guy surrounding that person. The thing that a lot of people forget about is this guy, right? This is your connections connection, right? And this, right, you have a relationship to this person. This could just be your friend, right? This is like your circle of friends, basically. The thing that a lot of people don't realize is how large that network is. Oh, hey, man, networking seems like a good idea, but, like, I don't know if I really know that many people, right? You know a lot more people than you think through that second-degree connection. So if we think about that, right, so, say I have, 500 connections, right? Maybe that's about average. Well, if all my 500 connections have 500 connections, that is 250,000 people if you multiply that, right? So if you're an average LinkedIn user, you should have about 250,000 people that realistically could be somebody willing to help you if you're able to leverage a relationship correctly and know how to ask for that. So realize that you might not think you're that great of a networker, but they're at your fingertips. You just have to figure out how to get there. So that's your network, right? Kind of understand who those people are, right? Commonalities are really how you build a relationship. So let's talk about finding the path, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get on LinkedIn for this. I'll run through, 3 quick slides here, because what I'm going to show everybody on the phone today or on the WebEx is 3 things. We'll look at when you look at a job on LinkedIn, where are you kind of looking for that connection path? We're going to look at on the company page itself, hey, how can I kind of look and see who's possible to have me play that networking card inside that organization. And we're also going to look at the alumni page for James Madison, which is huge. A lot of people don't even know these exist, but this is, again, coming from JMU, I really do think that we have a, love that's a level up from a lot of schools. And so that means that our alumni network's a lot more powerful than maybe your average, alumni network would be. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump and switch here to the World Wide Web, we call it that. So here's LinkedIn, right? So here's this product manager job, and of course, hey, I can go click on the jobs right here and say, hey, look, I'm finding a job, right? There's a lot of different ways. In fact, if you're looking for ways, hey, how do I, get jobs? So I'm just going to go back and watch that first webinar because we'll talk all about how to set that up. But let's say, hey, I found this product manager job at Google. Hey, I clicked on it. I don't know, we'll make up whatever we want in terms of how I got there, but I'm in front of this now, right? So guess what? I can see right here. You guys can see this. There's this has been posted 2 days ago. That's not too long. There's 14,000 people that have viewed this job, right? Google's a place a decent amount of people want to work. If you think that you're just going to randomly apply to that, and even if you're like, a great candidate, just the volume that Google gets it's going to be tough to be seen, right? It just is. So how else can I get my, get kind of separated from the big mass of people? They're all going about it the same way.
Zach, I'm going to interrupt you really quickly. We can't see your browser.
Oh, you can't see our browser. Okay, that is excellent for me to know. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can fix that for you.
There it is.
All right, guys. Cool. Good. Thanks. Thank you so much for Amanda interrupting me.
That's what I'm here for.
Awesome. Cool. So hopefully everybody can see this now. Hey, here's Google, right? Again, here it was posted 2 days ago. We've got about 14,000 views, right? Google is a place that a lot of people want to work. So again, hey, maybe you can get in the door here, but I've talked to people at Google about their application process, and I mean, they have a lot of software that just weeds out people. The recruiters will never see the light, or your profile won't normally see the light of day unless there's something special their algorithm has pulled out of it. So anyway, for a job like this, we want to figure out how do I get in the door and how do I separate myself from the rest of the candidates. So there's some easy things to look at. I'll actually show you. So Google, you'll notice, doesn't actually have a recruiter listed as the poster. I'll scroll and see. So if I go to just maybe a less well-known brand here, right? If you go to any posting on LinkedIn, a lot of times you can see, hey, here's Richard, and he's the poster. Well, guess what? Easy, step to go, hey, let me check out Richard. Maybe I know somebody that knows him, or I have some other commonality with him, whatever, right? A lot of times for very, very, a job that a lot of people seek out, that those recruiters purposely don't put that on there because they don't want to get overwhelmed with people reaching out to them. And sometimes, truthfully, reaching out to the recruiter about the exact job is not necessarily the best approach because that recruiter already knows that you want one thing, and that's to get the job, right? It's actually sometimes a better play to go, through the network and find somebody that he knows inside the company, inside of Google, that can refer you to him basically instead of going directly to him. But anyway, so if he's not, no posters there's some easy things that I can see. Well, right off the bat, I can see, wow, I actually have connections that work at Google. So I can check this out and say, okay, it looks like Jessica, and it'll scroll right down here, Jessica and Nina both work there. Nina was a colleague of mine. That's an excellent way. Getting Nina to introduce me to that person, whoever it is, that hiring manager, recruiter, that is going to put me in an entirely different channel than this normal, job application process going straight through here. So I can, obviously see the connections there. The other thing I can do too is I can even look down, if I keep going down, and it'll even show me if there's somebody that, has a similar title to what this title is. It'll say, hey, this is probably somebody that would be on your team. And so that's another thing, right? I can potentially say, oh, here's somebody that I can reach out to and, one, get insight about the actual opportunity but again, I can build some relationship capital. Any point, any person you contact becomes a point that you can reference later on, right? We'll talk about that in the interview piece. if you're able to, in an interview, basically, you know, display and talk to, hey, I've talked to people at Google, I've talked with somebody at your team. That is a real differentiator, and it's something that can really come in handy later. So, hey, there's not a ton here, right? There's no, this is a third degree, which means this is my connection, right? So not as strong. And let's say that Jessica and Nina, weren't there. Well, I can also check out the company itself and say, okay, what are some other ways I can maybe, figure out how to get here? So here's Nina, here's Jessica. Well, again, right, I didn't see that one team member was a third-degree connection. That's a little bit tougher to knock down that wall to say, hey, can you introduce me to somebody that can introduce me to somebody that can get me to that recruiter? A little bit tougher. But here's my secondary connection. And what's amazing is there is literally, if you look here, there's almost 5,000 people that basically the only reason they're not a relationship of mine is there's one other person in between them. So there is somebody I know that can introduce me to almost 5,000 employees at Google, right? So it's impressive. You'll be surprised when you go through this how many secondary connections you actually have. And so I can even look through this and say, hey, here's my secondary connections. Who makes sense for me to reach out to? Well, there's a lot of things that you can take into consideration here, and LinkedIn will try to do its best job to say, hey, we're going to bring you that person first who is, who is definitely, maybe willing to help you. So here, and this is just, I'm doing this off the cuff here. I actually know this guy, and how I know him is he looks like he's the SVP of Google, of operations at Google. The reason I know him is that he's an advisor, I think. So I have a really good friend who just started at the startup called BetterWorks. There's only like 70 people there, right? He's an advisor to that company. He sits on the board, and I know he's involved in the operations. That's awesome. I can reach out to my friend, and normally, hey, this is a guy that's a senior vice president at Google. He's pretty hard to access through Google, I would think, but he works with somebody, right, that is a startup where it's a very intimate team. So that's a real connection that if I get a referral to a recruiter from a, SVP at Google, that recruiter and hiring manager are going to listen to, like, whoever they put into their lap, they're going to at least, absolutely qualify and spend some time on. So it just shows you, hey, again, this is just some spitballing here of how many relationships are out there that you might not even know, but once you kind of look at that LinkedIn layer, you can, hopefully expose some of those and start to leverage them. So that was kind of, obviously we looked at the job itself, we're looking at the company itself. Now we're going to take a quick look at the alumni piece, because that is, again, everyone on this phone, we got a great alumni network. A couple ways to get to that. I could go, hey, I'm going to go search for James Madison, right? It'll pop up there. Even easier way to go is to go My Network, and then just hit Find Alumni, and it'll automatically take you to the alumni page. This is some powerful stuff here. So, what's interesting about, again, LinkedIn is we have so much data, and when we combine this and are really able to map out the greater percentage of everybody that's out there in every company and every job, we can garner some pretty interesting insights. So there's tons to explore here besides this, but if I am, again, I'm a job seeker right now, right? Let me show you some cool stuff here. So there's about 74,000 people that, associate themselves with LinkedIn, as an alumni. So I can see real quick what the makeup is of our alumni. Hey, most of them are in the United States, so it looks like maybe like 2 grand are out. Looks like DC and Virginia are kind of the big areas. There's about 5,000 of us in New York. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that. Where do they work, right? These are all real numbers of people that work here. What do they do? What's cool is maybe I'm thinking, hey, Zach, I've been in LinkedIn long enough. It's time for my next move. Love this company, but I want to get something. I want to get out. So let me look here. Let's see. Maybe IBM is the place I want to go, right? So what I can do real quick is say, hey, let me see who in my network works at IBM. Click on that, and I can see, hey, wow, here's all the people at IBM. Here's what they do. Here's where they live, right? Hey, maybe, I'm thinking about moving to DC, but you know what? I like New York City. I think I'm going to stay here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, New York City. So, if I scroll down here live, these are the people that are actually coming up, right? So it's kind of filtering down that. So I'm in the Greater New York City area. I like tech, right? But really I have a sales component, a business development component to my job. So I can say here, oh, hey, business development, let me see, what's going on. So there's 2 people here, and here they are. all right? So I noticed right off the bat, right, I don't have any connections to them or a connection path. They're alumni, so I can reach out and do that, but let me look, right? So let me go, instead of business development, let me do sales, right? Maybe there's somebody in sales that I have a connection path to. And I'm still getting nothing good on that. But let's say, okay, let me go broader, right? Because I can talk to anybody in that organization, hopefully. Let's do this. Well, here we go. I see Jen, and she's got 14 connections in common. She knows some of my friends, basically, from James Madison. That is awesome. Let me click into this and even see what's going on. I don't know Jen personally. She, again, is my second degree. If I scroll down here, this is my brother, right? He was also a JMU guy. Pretty cool that my brother knows somebody that works at IBM, right? That can definitely, I know Jason, somebody I can talk to and say, hey, Jason, hey, I saw you at Christmas, whatever. Like, listen, I'm trying to get ahead of my current role. I see that you know so-and-so who works at IBM. Like, how do you know her, right? You do have to be careful today, because one of the things that has happened is a lot of people have, you know, kind of overblown their networks. They've networked with everybody they possibly can, and they really don't know those people. So you always, as a disclaimer, do have to be focused on, okay, hey, I'm reaching out to somebody. Let me ask them, like, how well do they know that person? Is that somebody they randomly bumped into at a networking event, or is that, like, you know, a colleague of theirs or something? So there's always that quality of your connection. It's wise if you're one of those people that kind of went crazy and just built the biggest network you can. It's advisable to go pare it down. Look through your network and say, like, do I know these people? Are they ever willing to help me? Am I ever willing to help them? If those answers are no, then get them out of your network, because you're just going to basically have a lot of false positives, which are, hey, wow, I think I know somebody there, but, oh, I don't know that person at all. That's dead, and I just wasted my time, right? We don't want to have that happen for you. But anyway, we get the idea here, right? Your network is big, and your alumni network is huge. That's something, right, if you're looking at a great place to start, if you're just like, wow, I got to get out of my current role, but I'm not even sure what direction to take a look at our alumni, right, and see what's going on. Take a look at people that come from certain programs, and it'll give you some, you know, some direction on maybe where you have an easy way into a company, right? It's really cool just to see with the makeup of our alumni as well, with some pretty cool places we're all at. So that's a little bit about, you know, LinkedIn and kind of finding that connection path. LinkedIn is really, you know, over the past year or so, we've really tried to strive to make those insights a lot more easy to find. So you'll notice continuously this year we're going to keep improving upon that and iterating, and, you know, hopefully this will be, you know, something where you don't even have to think about it. We just surface that relationship to you. So take a little bit of a breath there, and we're going to move on. So talk about your network, right? Bigger than you think. Finding the path, right? It's that layer, okay? Every job I look at, every company I look at, I want to layer on my network and see what do I have a path in there besides just that straight line application. So, hey, I use my network, I found a path. Now maybe let's talk about the art to last. And we'll use an example of, we'll use Amanda as an example even, right? So there's a few different, you know, scenarios to this, right? This could be somebody that, like, hey, I mean, I knew Amanda when I was at JMU, but let's say that Amanda didn't know me at all. We still had JMU in common. There's some ways that she can ask me and kind of highlight that commonality to pull some heartstrings for me and say, oh, you know what, I love JMU. Like, you know what, Amanda, she's JMU, I'm JMU. Like, no problem, I'm going to go above and beyond. Obviously, she knew me, so that's an easy thing to go by, but let's talk about the art to ask and how to reach out. So we're going to use the example, again, of Amanda's, you know, a JMU grad. I'm a JMU grad, but I never saw her once in my life. We're not even a connection. She's just a blind, you know, or no connection path. She's just a random person that I know went to JMU. So, excuse me. Amanda actually did this, right? She emailed me one day and asked some things. And she actually did a really good job with this first point, which is to be complimentary when you have that initial outreach, right? We want to think about, right, put yourself in any of these people's shoes, especially if they're in a high-demand job at a high-demand company. You want to make sure that you don't come across as, you know, needy and very self-focused. What Amanda did when she reached out to me, she said, hey, that actually pumped me up a little bit, right? She kind of understood this play. Today's like, oh, it's so cool you work at LinkedIn. Like, oh, that's fantastic. I'm sure you love it there. Oh, hey, by the way, I'm in the alumni. I kind of lead this part of the alumni organization, and we're doing this webinar series. Like, based upon, I can see you're an expert in your space. Like, oh, wow. Like, would you be willing to do something? Well, guess what? She stroked my ego a little bit, And that's what made me say, like, wow, you know what? I think I do have some expertise in the space. I'd love to do that. So she came to me and said, hey, Zach, I don't know you, but, like, hey, I work for the alumni situation and the alumni organization, and, like, I really need somebody to do a webinar. Could you do that? That comes across to me as, you don't know me, and actually the interesting thing to think about that, you know, the semantics there is she started not using a lot of I phrases and me phrases. Hey, Zach, I'm part of the alumni, or I'm, you know, helping to lead the alumni association. I need this. She came across the opposite. Hey, Zach, ooh, I love your experience. You look so great, right? You want to make that initial reach out focus on them, and they're so great. And the reason that you're reaching out isn't because you need something and you got to get a job, or like you want in the door there. It's really about, wow, I came across your profile and you look special. You look like somebody I could trust that is an expert in your space. And because of that, I would just love to hear what you have to say about this. Again, you're really communicating the same thing, but in the order and the way about which you do it is going to give you very different results. So keep the ask small too, right? If Amanda, you know, she said, hey, would you be willing to like have a conversation and, you know, let me talk to you about like what we do? I was willing to get on the phone with her and say, hey, what's going on? And she said, Zach, hey, you know what? I think I want to do this webinar series, and like this is everything that's encompassed in it, like, oh, this, that. I would be like, whoa, that sounds like way too much. I'm too busy. Like can't do it. Keep the ask small, right? The end game with most networking plays is basically get somebody on the phone, right? Because that's where you know, email is tough to really develop a relationship over. A lot of times the ask is, hey, would you be willing to jump on the phone with me for 5 minutes just so I can ask you some things, right? Keep the ask small and simple, and you're going to have a lot better result than if you have a big long-winded message. You know, if I get somebody that, you know, emails me and it's like 2 paragraphs, to be honest with you, a lot of times I don't even look at it because it's like, I know they're trying to market me something, and it's just not like, it's obviously not a simple ask if they're putting 2 paragraphs of information there. Keep it specific, right? Make sure you understand, like, hey, I love the 5-minute conversation, right, to hear about what your experience is working there, right? Keep it simple, keep it specific, so that they don't, right, what will happen if you're too generic? Hey, Zach, I said that you do all this, like, can I get on a call with you? If I don't know what's happening, you know, human nature is kind of sometimes to, you know, think, oh, wow, because I don't know, I kind of distrust, and we don't want to, you know, basically leave it to the imagination and have it something that the imagination goes down the wrong path. Some things to keep in mind with this. Be patient, right? People are busy, right? I already know I've got invites messages from people that it's been a couple of weeks since I've even looked at my inbox because I've just been busy, right? I will reach back to these people, but realize, hey, if you reach out and, you know, it's been a week or 2 weeks, like, don't get super frustrated. People have busy lives, right? And, you know, just be respectful that, hey, we live kind of a high-demand society now, and they might be getting back to you. Just be patient. Don't get, you know, discouraged if you don't get a reach out right away. Don't be needy, right? So, again, this is, I think the first 3 points kind of you know, illustrate this, but, like, you don't want to be, right, if I'm talking to somebody inside an organization, right, let's talk about Google. Hey, I saw Nina works at Google now. Well, if I go to Nina and say, hey, like, I really want a job at Google, right? That's the message that I'm giving her. Well, she knows, like, I'm just using her as a pawn to get there, and, like, I'm probably, that's my goal. Take a softer play. Hey, I'd love to hear about your experience there, right? That's still a way to find out about the company, to maybe further down explore, right, how you can get connected to it. But don't be needy off the bat, and don't kind of put your cards on the table there, because that's going to, overwhelm people, and you're not going to get a positive response. The last thing is your profile. Like, people forget about this. The interesting thing is people, right, we don't live in LinkedIn is not email. Right? If I email somebody, well, the chances that they're going to try to research me before they respond are slim. They're going to look at what's in the email and then decide, hey, should I respond or should I not? Social media is different. LinkedIn is different. The purpose of the email message is to be, again, it's 1 or 2 sentences max, conversational. Hey, can you jump on the phone with me? You do not need to tell this person everything you do, everything about you. Where that happens is in your profile. When somebody gets an email on LinkedIn, right, or excuse me, if anybody emails me, guess what? I'm not responding to you until I check out your profile. If they're trying to build some clout build some trust and credibility about what you do, why they should respond to you, you do that in the profile. The cool thing about that is if I try to cram all the information into an email, right, it is making it, or even an email, right, it is making it seem marketing and like, boom, here's everything about me. It is a different experience when somebody gets an email and then they're doing the research, even though they're seeing the same information, there's just like a little bit different of an avenue to deliver it. But by them consuming the information and making assumptions about you from that, which should be positive, that's going to be a completely different dynamic than you telling them stuff. It just is. So again, make sure your profile is polished. You got a picture up there that tells a narrative. Again, go back to that first webinar if you're looking for advice on that. But that is a huge piece to this that people forget is that, guess what? It's not an email address. It is your profile. You want to think of that as being sent out with every email you send. So that's a little bit about, before you, submit that application. Again, right, in a perfect world, usually what happens is you're able to make that connection path, you get some insight about the company, and you develop some great rapport with that person. That person says, hey, you know what, like Zach, like, you know what, based on this conversation, let me refer you, right? What's interesting, and I've had this happen at LinkedIn before, where I've had somebody do exactly this. Oh, man, Zach, like, I'm in recruitment, like I love talking about LinkedIn. This is something that I didn't know, but just took this approach with me. We built some rapport. Guess what? LinkedIn pays a hefty referral fee for referrals. I was thinking, hey, this guy should be qualified. Like he's actually a fit for this role. I put him in our system. He's now a referral of me, from me, based upon my conversations and what I found out about him, right? He went from not knowing anybody to me referring him in a pretty short amount of time. So anyway, that can happen, right? And that wasn't his ask to say, hey, Zach, can you refer me now? But because he displayed the right things, because I saw he was a good candidate, I opted to do that. I said, hey, you know what, I'd be happy to refer you. So that's the best case scenario is you build a relationship, and then you can hint at it if you want, but a lot of times, if you really made a great impression, that person will offer to get you to the next step. So that is before, and of course, hey, then you can formally submit your application and go through all the, a lot of HR policy stuff that has to happen to actually formally submit. But again, your profile or resume is going to be earmarked, and you're going to be an entirely different stack of candidates than most. So that is pre-application. Now we're going to say, hey, everything went great. Zach now has an interview lined up. So what can I do, specifically using LinkedIn to maximize my success before I do that interview, right? So we're going to look at three things here. We're going to look at company diligence, relationship diligence, and then we're going to quickly look at, some pitfalls to avoid and some ways to stand out. So company diligence, take a look at this first. All right, so know these things, right? It's amazing, right? There's some basics, right? At Google, hey, company diligence, pre-interview prep, whatever, right? There's some really fundamentals, that you can find out, but these are some that they seem basic, but sometimes people miss this. One is, how do they make money? And what that is their business model. Businesses are about, business is a business because they make money. They're not profit, that's different, but, right, this is why you could have a job there is because they have some sort of model where they produce revenue, right? If you're trying to be able to speak to a business, right, or speak in an educated manner to a hiring manager, to a recruiter, one of the easiest things to make sure that you really understand and can do that is understanding how a company makes money. Because ultimately, whatever team you're on contributes in some way to revenue, right? There could be sales teams that directly bring it in, but there's a lot of support functions that enable those people to do it. Understand that, and that'll fill in a lot of blanks that you might have or that you might not even know you have. What is their mission, culture, and values? This does seem like a very corporate-y, like, oh, corporate, whatever, like, who really cares? It's all kind of BS, and sometimes in some organizations it is, but I will tell you this, right? This is part of how recruiting and talent acquisition, has really evolved over the years, right? Because we're in a place where, we're in the information age, where everybody's more connected, what has happened is, again, there's less friction. People in their current roles see other roles that are attracted to them. And so what that has, the effect of that is basically that, hiring managers understand, recruiters and talent acquisition organizations understand, hey, if this person isn't a cultural fit and isn't aligned with our values and mission, they're probably not going to be here long. why this has changed is 10, 15 years ago, maybe you were unhappy, maybe you weren't a good cultural fit, right? You're like, oh, hey, like, this is a good job, but like, these people are my people, I don't align with this company and what they're doing. Well, that person a lot of time would just keep on working forever because they didn't see a lot of opportunities out there. This is different. We live in this information age, right, where everything's at our fingertips. Because of that, talent acquisition is putting a lot more emphasis than they ever have before on, does this person really gel with our team? Are they somebody that could be a long-term employee and be happy in some of these softer skills? So understand that. And again, if you're talking with most hiring managers, right, this is something that is part of their team and part of their organization. And by figuring out what that is, you're going to be able to speak in their language. And that's really important, is being able to kind of speak in the verbiage that they use. That will, right, make sure that things just don't get lost in translation. Last thing is really what happened and what's happening, right? This is basically, hey, where is the company coming from in the last 3 years and what's happening next? This is basics, but again, you'd be amazed how many people get into an interview. I've seen a lot of this stuff happen, and they've done no diligence on, hey, what the goals are of the company, where they're headed, right? Going to a company's external website, some of this is on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is a lot of times just a portal to, hey, I can go look at this company's earnings release, or, hey, anything they put on YouTube channels. I mean, look at everything you can on the internet with these companies, try to figure out what happened, and then what's happening. If you can speak to that in an interview, you will absolutely make a difference, because there's a lot of people that really can't do it just because they haven't done the diligence. And the other thing, too, is when you were talking about interviewing, a lot of times, we'll talk about this in some of the pitfall things, but a lot of times people, kind of fall into this trap about having everything be focused on them. If you understand where the company's been and where it's going, you can basically say, hey, I see where you guys have been. Wow, I see the vision here. Well, let me tell you, I love that. I love that vision. I can see how I fit into that picture. If you're not really familiar with where the company's going, it's going to be tough for you to communicate how you fit into that, how you're going to contribute to your team's success, to your department's success, and to the overall success of the company. So the more you do on this, the better. The other thing I would say with company diligence in general, it seems like a lot of heavy lifting, right? And you're going to do yourself you're going to be a lot more successful if you pick 5 or 6 companies to go after with and really do your homework on, than if you come in and go to 10 jobs, right, that you really might not be a fit for and you just kind of wing it, right? You're probably not going to be the one picked for all those. It's just much better to kind of narrow down your pool that you're really interested in and do a good job with those. The volume approach does not work today. It just doesn't. So relationship diligence, right? Some things to keep in mind with this. Recruiter versus hiring manager, I won't spend too much time on this really, but do realize, right, the difference between these two things. A recruiter is basically assessing you at a high level. If you're talking to a recruiter and that's your first interview, you want to speak in headlines and you want to be able to kind of have an elevator pitch to give this recruiter. Because ultimately, this recruiter is not an expert for that team. He doesn't understand the subtleties of, hey, everybody on the team and how they fit in and really what's going on with that, what that team's direct mission is, et cetera. They understand, hey, the hiring manager told me I need to go find somebody that needs these things or meets this criteria. So what you want to do is be able to verbalize to the recruiter, hey, here's a little narrative that you can go tell a hiring manager. Because ultimately, right, that recruiter is going to meet the hiring manager and say, hey, here's 5 or 6 candidates, what did you think about them in your interviews? And if you're able to basically give a little story, right, that a recruiter is going to remember and be able to verbalize themselves, that's going to be a lot better than getting into the weeds with oh, you're so good at this or that. You want to focus on a narrative approach with the recruiter. With the hiring manager, you can get deeper, right? You can really, dig in more to oh, hey, what you did in your last job and how it applies to this one, show some industry knowledge or, how you have the skills based on some deeper conversations. But people more broad with the recruiter, you can kind of drill down a lot more when you go to the hiring manager. Some other things to keep in mind is, again, business is personal. We talk about relationship diligence here, right? LinkedIn, right? Again, we talked about some things like nonprofits are involved in. Some people will put, hey, I'm interested in golf, or I'm a Steelers fan, or whatever. Realize this. Again, this is the information age. There's qualified candidates out there for a lot of jobs. There might be 4 or 5 people that truly are at the same level in terms of qualifications for a job, right? So if somebody really is, hey, there's 5 people, they're all aligned, and they all are at a certain level, what's going to make the difference? It's your ability to connect with that person, to connect with that hiring manager and build some relationship capital and connect with them, you know, on commonalities. So do that diligence. I mean, if you know you're interviewing with a hiring manager, like, stalk them on Facebook, check them on LinkedIn, anywhere you can. And if there's something that's actually, I guess, refreshing to hiring managers, they'll go sit through 10 interviews in a day, right? And they're like, oh, God, I got to talk about the same stuff again. They are hungry to talk about something besides the same role stuff they're talking about all day long. Hey, I see some guys from Pittsburgh. Oh, I was born in Pittsburgh too. Steelers fan. We'll talk about that for 2 minutes. And that hiring manager is like going to remember me more, and he's going to like me more because I'm not just the same bland guy that's talking about the same stuff you have to do all day, right? The personal part of business is more than you think, and that can be, you know, ultimately a hiring manager is going to pick somebody that's qualified that they think can really fit into their team the best, but also somebody they like, right? And to be likable, you have to have commonalities with people you can, you know, kind of reference. Relationships matter. This is, we talked, right, we got to this path for somebody you knew. This is always something that's great to, you know, put out there in terms of if that hiring manager knows anyone that you know, again, I would test this, make sure that that person actually knows the hiring manager, that you actually know them. Otherwise, you make yourself look like kind of a fool. But anytime you can bring up a relationship that you have in common, that is a huge win. One of the things that does, right, if that's a true relationship on both sides, obviously it establishes some commonality, connection there, but part of it is that hiring manager says, wow, okay, maybe it's, you know, I've got a hiring manager, right, that I'm interviewing with, and he happens to know Amanda as well, too. And I say, hey, Joe Schmo, like, thank you so much for this interview. It's great. Oh, hey, I happen to see you know Amanda. Like, how do you know Amanda? Like, oh, hey, we'll do this together, whatever. Well, this hiring manager now thinks, wow, this guy knows Amanda. So what that does from a hiring manager's perspective is he does, if he cares about his relationship with Amanda, well, he's not going to treat me like dirt. He's going to try to do a good job at really giving you a fair chance because there's a relationship at stake there. You know, this hiring manager knows that if he says, hey, Zach, you know what, like, we had this interview, but, like, I'm sorry, I got something else coming up, and, like, yeah, like, you talk to me next week or something, I'm going to go to Amanda and be like, dude, I thought you knew, like, Joe Schmo. Like, this guy is not, like, you know, he's not treating me very nice. Like, I thought you said he was a good guy. They don't want it to happen, right? They care about relationships. And by doing this, you're basically putting Amanda, hey, here's Amanda. She's in the picture now. She's one more reason why I am deserve a fair shot. But more so, you're going to be remembered longer than other people that don't have that connection. The other thing, too, is a great thing to understand is look at the hiring manager, even if this is a recruiter, how did they get there? You want to, and LinkedIn is obviously a great resource for this, what can I see, right, on their profile that I can address in an interview? Oh, hey, I saw you worked at so-and-so 5 years ago, and then you went to there, like, hey, how did you make that decision to change roles or change companies, whatever? That's going to, people love to tell their stories, and you're going to build a lot of relationship capital that way. You're going to get to know them a lot, and you'll get to understand how they thought about their careers and their path, which is going to help you verbalize how you can, you know, not copy that almost, but really speak in their thinking of, oh, hey, you did that. Like, oh, I'm thinking a similar way, right? That's going to help you, again, speak to their you know, their terms of the language better. We're almost done here. We got 2 more things to go through. And we should have, you know, a good 10 minutes left for questions, hopefully. So pitfalls to avoid, right? Avoid these. They're bad. It's not about you. Again, people don't, this is like a very high-level thing, but it's like the most common thing we see is you come in an interview, and it's really about, oh, hey, I'm interviewing for this job, and every question you're asking, all the conversations are really about, like, oh, hey, so tell me about this, and it's all through this lens of what can this company do for me? Like, why is this a good opportunity for me? And what you want to do is understand and look through the lens of every discussion you have, every question you can ask, you want to try to frame it in a way that makes it focused on how you're going to contribute to that team and how you're going to, kind of contribute to the greater good of the company, right? That's kind of like a fuzzy description on this, and I hope I'm not, there is no one, you know, silver bullet with this, but just, again, when you're prepping for an interview, think, how can I illustrate that I guess an example of this is if I'm asking, hey, sales manager, like, let me ask you about the quotas. Oh, like, what do you think about the quotas? Like, how big are they? How successful are people, right? I'm just straight asking about that. It looks like, oh, I'm worried about maybe hitting my goals. And again, it's all me. If I ask them questions that are like, oh, hey, hey, hiring manager, sales manager, whatever, like, hey, tell me about your quotas. Like, I did really well in this sort of model. I didn't do so well in that. I want to figure out what model you have, because if you're this model, like, I think it'll be a great positive for maybe me in this organization, right? I'm putting that, I'm not just asking random questions. I'm trying to put that in a way where that hiring manager can see, oh, wow, I see, this question makes me think about how he fits in here. Dumb question, dumb candidate, right? Sometimes when people don't have any questions prepared, they'll ask dumb ones that they should have known, right? An easy one is like, oh, I don't know. Oh, Zach, the interview's complete. Do you have any questions? Oh, crap, I don't have any questions. What's your business model, right? Ask a dumb question that basically displays that I don't know anything about the business. I probably did know the business model, but if I don't have something prepared, it's going to, a lot of times people fall into the trap of asking an easy question, which makes you not look smart because you should have had that answer. Negative Nancy, right? If you're looking for a new role, it's probably because, there's something about your other role that's not, the right fit for you right then. Be careful not to trash your team, not to trash your company. You can say, hey, there's always a way to bring it and end on a positive note, which is, no, hey, hiring manager, like, let me tell you what I'm looking, for my next role. Like, instead of the negative Nancy would be, oh, my boss, he's terrible. Like, the company's not doing well. I'm just like, oh, negative, negative, negative. I can say the same stuff and say, hey, you know what, my boss, I love the guy. He's trying really hard, but he's not a fit for the team. And I think a lot of team members are maybe looking to get out. And, great company, great experience, but like, based on those pressures, I think it's, time to move on to the next place. I think, you have all the qualities that he's missing, right? Take a positive tone to whatever you do, even if you're addressing negative things. Lastly, no elevator pitch. Again, talking about, right, if you're talking to a recruiter, telling a little story, people make a mistake of being long-winded and kind of all over the place. You want to basically have in your back pocket a 2-minute sort of pitch about, hey, this is everything about me that you want to know, and this is why I fit in your organization, and why I'm going to be a better candidate than the next guy, right? So very, very simple. And then the last thing here, standing out. So ways to stand out, these are kind of very broad, but effort stands out, right? Doing the diligence, going a level deeper, right, than other candidates do is going to be really, really important. I'll breeze through these so we have time for questions. Fit stands out. Don't submit a generic resume to a job you really want. You're shooting yourself in the foot. What's interesting is more is not better, right? Fit is best. What I mean by that is, guess what? I might be, maybe I'm looking for a sales job and I was a senator before or something crazy, right? It's great that I was a senator and that's all good and fine, but guess what? That's not going to bode well for me being a salesperson, right? That doesn't mean I'm a better fit. I would want to eliminate that or minimize it rather, because I want that person, when they're looking at what I have, to really just see the exact fit, nothing that's above or beyond or below and not, not enough. Ingenuity stands out. Being able to, get around things or showing that you're thinking about things in a different way. Really good example of this about why I think is one of the reasons I was able to land my job on LinkedIn. I got emailed by a recruiter, right? And they actually reached out to me and said, hey, Zach, we're building out this staffing group inside of LinkedIn, and we, want to look at you. I was like, holy cow, I really need to make sure I do a bang-up job on this. One of the things I did was I randomly reached out to an engineer on the West Coast at LinkedIn, and I just sent him an email and said, hey, you know what, I'm interviewing here soon. This guy, I just came across his profile. It looks like someone I could probably connect to or connect with, really, on a personal level. And I just had that simple ask of, hey, could you spend 5 minutes with me to help me understand the organization? In my interview process, I mentioned, oh, hey, I happened to talk with so-and-so in engineering. Like, he told me a lot about the company culture. Like, the hiring manager's jaw dropped a little bit because he's like, what? How do you do that? Like, you just reached out randomly? I'm like, yeah, I wanted to find out, what the deal was. That set me apart, and it almost made it like I already had a reference inside the organization. That guy in particular I chose because he had been with LinkedIn almost from the beginning, so I knew that he was somebody that was well-known and respected in the org. So ingenuity stands out, make sure you fit, and then really if you're able to show that you put good effort in, there's not a lot better than those 3 things. That is it, guys. So we're going to have some time for questions. I have a little bit more time with Amanda after the hour. I'm going to stay on for a little bit more, but hopefully this was, helpful to people, and I'd love to hear what questions we have.
Zach, I think I can speak for everyone when I say that you do a really good job at packing a lot of information into a short amount of time. One question that I did want to throw out there, and feel free to submit your questions to the Q&A if you have any. If you reach out to that person and you don't hear back from them, how soon do you follow up, and when do you know to kind of back off?
Right. That's a great question. So I think in today's world, I think, after 2 weeks is a pretty good time to say, hey, maybe it's now time. And an important kind of advice piece to that is, if you're reaching out again, make sure you're not negative. Make sure you're not, accusing someone, hey, why didn't you respond to me? The easiest thing to do, if you shot that nice simple note of, hey, I'd love to see, I love your background, like you look so great, and I'd love to hear about, your experience in the organization. If you didn't get a response to that note, a great follow-up note is not to restate all that, but just to say 1 or 2 sentences. Oh, hey, I shot you this note. I didn't know if you missed it. Is now a better time? Simple as that, right? A lot of times people on that second outreach will go, oh, man, I totally, I've been busy. I was on vacation, whatever. They'll reach back, but make sure you're passive with that. Maybe try a third one in, 3 weeks, and if they don't, hey, just move on. One of the things is to make sure you're doing this with multiple people potentially, so that you have a better chance of one of them hitting.
That's great. And what about, you had mentioned it's not always good to max out your connections. What about connecting to recruiters at companies you'd like to work at in the future?
I think that's that's definitely the exception, right? Recruiters are, the deal is that recruiters always, their job is basically to connect people to opportunities, so that is the exception to the rule in terms of any recruiter should be a good resource. They'll want to connect to you because they, that question of, are they willing to help you, right, is a yes, right, because that's their job, right, potentially for a good candidate.
Great. I think we have 2 more questions, so we're going to take the 2 that have already come in. In terms of current students making the artful ask, how can they ask for someone's time without it being all about them and their job search? Any extra advice on that?
So the thing too is not right. So when you're asking anybody, right, the important thing again is not to put your cards on the table. You want to, and hopefully this is genuine, right? You should be wanting to talk to somebody before you join an organization to figure out what the real deal is there, right? So if you come, right, and you're like, oh hey, I'm reaching out to you because I want this job. Well, you know what? You shouldn't even know if you want that job yet because you haven't done enough diligence. Your aim, right, when you're making that first kind of connection or that first outreach is really to find out somebody's experience through there. You're going to net a lot of things from there, but to answer the question, right, you don't have to go hardcore for the job because really, if you're doing this the right way, you should genuinely be interested in their experience and if that's a good fit for you. You might offer that conversation and say, oh my God, this person hates this place, and I'm not even going to apply because this guy's about to leave, right? You'd be surprised if you have that candid, approach, what you can get out of it.
Great. And last question, how important are recommendations? I know we talked about this a little bit last time, but how important are they to recruiters and hiring managers? And do you find that they're looking at skills and endorsements as well? So what really are they looking at on your LinkedIn profile?
Yep, absolutely. So I'll tell you this, right? So absolutely, hey, it's good to have skills, it's good to have recommendations. Recommendations are good. It does depend, right, on the fields you're in, but I'll say this, right? It is most important, right, that your summary tells a narrative because if you think about, again, we looked at Google, there's 14,000 people that applied, or we're over 1,400, something like that, in 2 days. These people in the review and profiles aren't scanning through the entire thing. Maybe they will right before the interview, right? But in terms of getting your foot in that door, you want to make sure that that summary portion tells that nice, concise story that they can remember and they don't need to go down that long. If they're in a battle, right, and they're thinking, oh my goodness, I've got like 10 people, they're all great. Well, maybe we'll go drill down and look at some of those things. They're going to ask for references anyway, aside from that. So it's absolutely a good thing to have in terms of another layer to help you, but it's not the thing you want to make sure that the other parts and components of your profile are, banging on all cylinders before you need to worry about that.
Great, Zach.
Too, I would say. who it's from. Like if it's somebody that's like a high-end, if it's an SVP or somebody very high level, that bodes, a lot better than, hey, obviously a bunch of people on the same team, not as cloud, not as much cloud built.
Great. Well, Zach, I just want to say thank you so much. It has been a pleasure doing this kind of two-part series with you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presentation. I know you've helped a lot of people in the past couple months just through these webinars. So thank you for everyone for being on today. We hope you'll join us for the next webinar, 10 Ways to Set Yourself Up for Entrepreneurial Success, presented by JMU alumna Jennifer Eddy on March 1st, 2016 at noon. You can register online through our website. If you or someone you know is interested in presenting a webinar, please contact me. My email is on our website. It's leachad@jmu.edu. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys. See you later.